Hi friends, welcome to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Caitlin and I like to do eyeshadow palette ranking and review videos, as well as occasional other types of beauty content. So if that's content that you are interested in, you should definitely hit that subscribe button. And for those of you that are not new here, my face is happy that you are seeing it again. And today we are doing my June eyeshadow palette ranking. So if you've never seen one of these videos from me before, I like to rank old and new palettes. So I basically just rank any palette that I used in the month of June. I think it's helpful to see what older stuff do I still reach for? Do I like the new stuff better than the old stuff? And yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and get on into it. We have 18 palettes, I think. One's kind of a like mixture of some palettes that I grouped into one because I did like a build your own palette. I'll explain it when we get there. But anyways, if you like eyeshadow palette ranking videos, you should definitely hit that like button. And yeah, let's just get started. I'm fairly certain there's 18 palettes, so in the number 18 spot is the Melt Cosmetics Millennial Pinks palette. I actually like the shimmer formula and the matte formula in this palette, but I just feel like I struggle with this color story on how to create cohesive looks and then also like blend in from this gray. Like I just feel like there's a big jump in depth, but it's not a bad palette. It's just, I don't know. I just don't vibe with this color story as much, and this ranking is entirely based on my preferences. So that's that. And then number 17 is the Melt Cosmetics 420 palette. This one I do struggle a little bit with the quality of some of these mattes. Like I feel like to get these shades pigmented, you really have to build it. Although I will say, when I used this palette, I used like a cream eyeshadow base that was the same color as this shadow, and it worked really well. I didn't feel like I had to finesse it as much. I like this color story a little bit better than the Millennial Pink, so that's why it is where it's at. But yeah, there's only one shimmer shade, but I do think that that's a nice shimmer shade as well. And if you're not following me on TikTok, you should be, katelynhousemakeup, but I'm also doing this on Instagram, so follow me on either platform, whichever you choose to use. But I'm doing a Melt Cosmetics series. I have, I think, 15 or 14 done, 15 or 14 of the Melt things done. So, and that's out of 18. So you'll be seeing a Melt Cosmetics like bracket video with those looks. Check out my Melt Cosmetics eyeshadow like palette ranking video that explains it a bit more. But anyways, that's why you're going to see a lot of Melt palettes here. So number 16 is the Melt Cosmetics Vida palette. This palette is discontinued, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about it. I don't love the shimmer formula, but I do really love the mattes in this palette, and I really like the color story. So Number 15 is the Danessa Myricks what is it? Lightwork Volume 3 Infinite Light palette. I feel like she teased that she was launching another one of these, and I really want her to just do it. Yeah, look, I hit a very large pan in this shade Golden Eclipse. But yeah, I like this palette. I really need to try this palette with like these shades with a glitter glue, because I feel like they fade pretty quickly, which is my issue with them, but they're so pretty. I don't have like a ton of individual single multi-chrome shadows, so this palette really works for me, and I'm a big fan. Number 14 is the Love Beauty Impressionism palette. I've only used this palette a couple of times, so I don't feel like I can give like a really thorough review, but I really like the color story, and what I have used of the shadows is like the rest of the Love formula, so I feel like it's pretty good. So yeah. Number 13 is the Melt Cosmetics Rust palette. I really like this palette. It's a really cool grungy neutral palette that's pretty interesting, and it goes from very light to very dark and hits kind of all the things in between. So I really enjoy this palette. I love the shade Erode. I don't know if you can, Erode and Classic are probably my two favorites. I have decent dips in the Rubbish, I also do, but I kind of stick to the same shades. I don't go for like the super deep shades, and I don't really use the shimmers in this palette. I'm not like a dark metallic fan as much. Number 13 is the Milk Cosmetics Radioactive palette. This palette is also discontinued, so I won't spend a ton of time on it, but I really like this palette. I like the satiny formula, actually. I think it's really fun and you know, brings something different. But yeah, it's good. 11 is the Milk Cosmetics Impulsive palette. Again, this one is discontinued, so not going to spend a ton of time on it, but I actually think this palette's really nice. A lot of people don't like the bulky packaging. I think it's kind of cool, but yeah, overall, every time I've done a look with this palette, I've really liked it, so no complaints. I also should have mentioned that the Impressionism palette was a new to me palette in the month of June, but it's not like a new launch. So that's where we're at as far as the new palettes go. Number, what are we on? 10 is the She's in Parties palette from Milk Cosmetics. This was like my favorite palette of the year. I think what, 2-3 years ago? I can't remember if it was, I think it was 2019. So like 2.5 years ago at this point. It was at the end of 2019. But anyways, I really like this palette. This is one of my favorite Milk Cosmetics palettes. But it's just, it's more of a monochromatic palette, and I just like a little bit more color, although I have a very monochromatic look on right now, so just ignore that, but I like a little bit more color. Number 9 is the Sydney Grace and Mel Thompson collab, the Tiny Marvels palette. I don't know what it is about this palette, but I just really, really like it. I like the ability to do like neutral looks, but have these pops of colors, and yeah, I don't know, there's just something about it that has me, I just really enjoy it every time I reach for it, so I'm really a big fan of that palette. Number 8 is the Milk Cosmetics Gemini palette. This is also one of my favorite Melt palettes. I really enjoy this palette. I really like this color story. I think the shimmer formula is super nice, and yeah, it's just overall it's always a good fun palette to play with, so highly recommend that palette if you haven't tried it yet. I know they just relaunched it. I don't know if they changed the formula, but they relaunched it with new packaging, but yeah, it looks really, the packaging's really cute, and I really like the palette, so you should get it if you can. I think this is 7th place. I don't even know at this point. So it's a chunk of Viseart palettes because I did a build your own palette. The video of it is up over on my TikTok. I use shades from all of these palettes and the Paris Edit palette, but I use shades from the Petite Matte's Dark, the Petite Matte's Cool, the Editorial Bright, the Dark Edit, and the Petite Pro Trois. So I ranked all of these together just because I made like a combined palette, so I wasn't like using them as individuals. I put them all in one palette together. But yeah, I really liked it. I liked the color story. It was like pink and, or no, it was green and purple with like a pop of pink. So it was very cute. Let me see if I could actually, I'll show you if I remember which shades. It had these 2 green shades for sure, and that was from the Pro Trois palette, and then from the Dark Edit I want to say it had this purple shimmer and this green shimmer, and then from the Petite Matte's Cool it had the live lavender shimmer here. And then from the Petite Matte's Dark, it had the, I can't remember if I did the dark green matte. I definitely did the dark blue matte, I think. Just for some added depth. And then the Editorial Brights, I think it had the pink, purple, and white. And then the 2 greens. So it had those shades in it. And then the Paris Edit, it had, I think the light pink shimmer. Yeah, it had this light pink shimmer here. So yeah, those were all of the shades. Like I said, you can go on my TikTok and see like it like fully, but anyways, just wanted to walk through what was in there. But I really like that palette. I did only use it once, and then I did my ranking palettes I've tried so far this year video, and I didn't want to hold up the palettes with like mix matched shades, so I put everything back together. So I don't know, I might need to do another one so that I can play around with it. But anyways, number 6 is the Angelica Nyqvist and Odin's Eye collab. This is the Hella palette. I really enjoy this palette. I do think that the color story isn't like my perfect color story because I don't love green eyeshadow and there is a lot of greens, but I think it's a fun, cohesive color story together with the pinks and the greens, and all of these shimmers are so beautiful. I tend to pull this palette out just to grab like one of these shimmer shades because they are stunning. Number 5 is the Viseart Paris Edit palette. I just think this is a really pretty neutral, soft, like makeup look palette. I really like it. So yeah, that's why it was where it is. I talked about Dark Edit as being part of that build your own palette that I did with all my Viseart palettes, and that was another new to me palette. That's not like a new in general palette. Now this next one, which is number 4, is a new to me palette, but I'm counting it as like a new palette because they just relaunched it with this packaging. But this is the Viseart Soleil palette. This is just like the perfect, one of the perfect summer palettes. I have a couple of others that I think are perfect, but I live for this color story. It's a beautiful sunset color story. You can do a really warm toned eye with it, but then you can also pull in those purples, and I just think it's really pretty. I like this a lot. Number 3 is the Viseart Petite Pro Chou palette. Same thing as the Soleil palette, they just re-promoted it, so I'm considering it as like a new palette, but this is the perfect summer palette. I am obsessed with this like bright coral, this bright pink. The shimmery shades in here are perfect. It is one of my favorite little palettes that I have. I am obsessed with this. Okay. Number 2 and number 1 should not be shocking at all if you just watched my palettes that I've tried so far this year. So Solmon 2 was new to me in the month of June. I tried it for the first month, or for the first time in the month of June, but she is beautiful. I, again, love the shimmer shades. I like the shimmer formula that Odin's Eye has. I actually have this palette on my eyes right now. I did do like a liner that I created with some House Labs and About Face paints, but like the matte and the shimmer are, let's see, this shade and this shade from this palette. This shimmer shade is what is all over my lids, and that's what I love about the Odin's Eye formula, is you can build up the shimmers to be more opaque, or you can kind of sheer them out and just get this really pretty sparkly look. But yeah, I really love this. I love the color story. I love the combination of warm and cool. It is one of my favorite palettes this year. The number 1 is the Cosmic Brushes Serenity palette. So far, this is my favorite palette this year. I just spoiled that other video if you haven't watched it yet, sorry. But yeah, this color story speaks to my soul because I love purple. And I just said I didn't like green eyeshadow, but I like this green, and when it's in conjunction with purple, that's when green works for me because I am obsessed with purple. But I think this is a really good palette. I know that it's not in stock right now, but I'm still gonna link it down below because I think there's the option to like be notified for a pre-order, or anyways, you should follow Cosmic Brushes on Instagram to see when they're doing their next like sale of it, because it sells out every single time they launch it. It's so good. So highly recommend that one. But yeah, those were all of the palettes I used in the month of June. I think I only had I had the 3 like new palettes, which was the 2 Viseart and the Solmon palette, which were all in like my top spots, and then the new to me was the Impressionism and the Dark Edit, and I only used the Dark Edit like as a part of that whole, you know, create your own palette, so I haven't really tried that one yet. But the Impressionism palette I also haven't used that much. But yeah, I think the new palettes really did something for me this month. So yeah, that's everything. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know which palettes you liked using in the month of June, and I will see you all next time. Bye.